So we will now transition to a fireside chat panel focusing on sharing forest sector DE&I successes. Representatives from different areas of the forest sector will share their experiences with DE&I and the successes they have seen within their organizations. After we've heard from each speaker, we will open the floor up for questions. Now I'm pleased to introduce Heather Berklund, Chief State Forester for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. And might I add, Heather is the first woman in Wisconsin's history to hold this position. So Heather, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be talking with such a diverse group and energetic group. This is where it starts, right? And I'm going to have Amy share. Great. Yes, Heather Berklund. I've been with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for a little over 21 years. In this role as our Chief State Forester for 1 year, actually. And so very much an honor. And I also recognize that in this role, being the first female for over an 100-year program, comes with responsibility. And so recognizing that in any organization that you're leading, putting people of diversity in leadership roles is one of your first steps you can do for success. So my kind of lens I'm going to be looking through is kind of advocating for DEI efforts within a larger public sector agency, which may be a little bit different from some of the other folks that are here and some of the other panelists, but hopefully you can kind of find similarities and ways that you too can help lead whatever effort you are engaging with. Next slide, please. And so, you know, being overt, here are some Wisconsin Forestry Division goals, and these are very broad. And I think I would like to just start and emphasize that having leadership at the highest level support and prioritize these initiatives is important. We are lucky to have a secretary within our Department of Natural Resources that has made this investment and has made this a priority for our agency. And so that right there is telling in itself, and then gives us the ability and capacity as division leaders under our department to be able to move forward with some of these efforts. So while at the department level, much of the focus has been kind of on recruitment and retention, you know, at the division level, we have some additional challenges within the forestry program, which many of you are all familiar with, and we'll be hearing that as a theme. In a public organization, we obviously are bound by a few more rules. We may have statutes that are already limiting us from being as diverse and inclusive as we could. So really thinking about and diving into those institutional barriers is one of our starting points. And those are going to be long-term investments, possibly getting legislation changed and making those efforts. And then recognizing right away that as an organization, you need to invest in these. Obviously, we're all limited on funding, limited on resources, especially in the public sector. And so having to make those hard choices and recognizing that you need to invest, you need to prioritize this DEI efforts in order to even make incremental changes. And so, like I had mentioned, as a division leader, being very clear up front in setting our leadership team's objectives and pillars so that staff know what is expected of them and how they can start looking at the work that they do through a DEI lens. And then I think this was mentioned before too, having attainable outcomes and measurements. And so we've instilled some performance measures in our annual performance reviews for all staff, but especially supervisors, to begin some of these efforts to be more inclusive. And then I'll just add too here is admitting that you and your organization may not be the experts. We recognize that we don't have the skills within our division to be able to navigate this broad, this tough topic. And so we are investing in contracting with entities that do have that expertise that can help us start to peel apart the layers, the challenges, and then the direction we need to go as a division for the future. So for me, it's a long-term investment, and I really want to make sure that we're beginning to set a culture within our division and setting that foundation, knowing that there's going to be small changes during my career, but hopefully that next wave, that next generation of employees within our division, within the forestry sector, will have that foundation and will just be able to build upon it. Next slide. I think this was mentioned, but I thought this was really telling. And we've used this website. I have the source down below that's really follows some of the demographics in the nation about forestry degrees in general. So the different universities and who is even getting forestry degrees. So it's just very telling. Lots of different data sets there. I encourage you to go check that out. But it's really telling that we need to work upstream and starting to get kids and students from diverse backgrounds even interested in forestry. And I think we all recognize that forestry degrees are dwindling. And so we have just that first challenge just to move that bar forward. And so encourage you to check that out. So thinking about upstream, next slide. We've had some long-term strategies as far as thinking about that career continuum and getting people excited. And so strategic planning, and then, like I said, paying attention to that career continuum and marketing the diversity jobs in forestry. So these are all kind of building blocks that we're starting. We're probably not as far as some other agencies across the nation, but like I said, I'm really excited to start in some of these efforts. So some metrics that we've been working on right now in this past couple years is partnerships. And we've heard a lot about partnerships, and that's probably going to be the theme that we hear for the rest of the session. And so working with our LEAF program, which is outdoor education, our forestry exploration center that we have right in the heart of Milwaukee, and Trees for Tomorrow, which is up in the northern part of Wisconsin, and helping them partner and design programs that introduce kids to diverse backgrounds and careers in forestries. That'll be kind of our emphasis the next 5 years and how we as a DNR can embed in some of these efforts. And then just recently we contracted and worked with Into the Outdoors, which is a kids program highlighting the multitude of careers in Division of Forestry in Wisconsin. That's here to air sometime this winter. And so we recognize that many people have this vision that forestry is someone out in the woods, but there's so many more different job opportunities within the forestry career spectrum. And so just bringing that to the attention, aeronautics, IT, research, all of the plethora of jobs that you could do in careers. And so investing in this program where hopefully we'll reach many kids and get them excited. We also recognize that there are schools that are out there that are doing a good job of attracting minorities and women. So making those connections, starting to build the pipeline of those relationships. So I personally have been reaching out to several HBCU campuses, and so trying to understand how we might be able to just understand where students are coming from and where they may want careers, and how we can engage in programs such as some fellowship programs or internships. So starting those foundations. And then also in Wisconsin, UW Stevens Point just started a Wisconsin Forestry Center, as well as Wisconsin's SAF has partnered in looking at DEI partnerships. We are lucky to have a Forest Service here, trying to partner with some of their DEI efforts. So just recognizing that it's an all hands on deck approach, and that to leverage these partnerships, because again, in your sector, in your public agency, we don't have all of the tools or the skills to be able to invest. And so finding those opportunities and where we can embed ourselves. Next slide. So I just want to hit on a couple things our department as well as the division is doing. First thing is kind of creating this action plan and recognizing short term, there are some actions that we want to make sure that we're attaining, as well as this long-term investment and strategy I mentioned. So really the focus at the department level, like I said, has been in that recruitment, but also recognizing where we're at with from hiring practices. I think that was mentioned as well, and just finding those areas in our hiring practices where we are not being inclusive, having diverse interview panelists, adding a DEI question on our interview question during our hiring process. And then at the department level, we are looking to create a position, an environmental justice policy position that will be able to help navigate all of the division's efforts as well as cross-agency spectrum. At the department and at our division level, we have created and invested in a diversity team. And so being able to focus specifically and having representatives on that team and embracing the diversity that you do have. And so the Division of Forestry, we have very minimal percentage of the ethnic diversity, race diversity, and even gender. So for me, it's acknowledging and having our staff acknowledge what is the diversity we do have right now and how can we embrace that, whether it's your where you went to school, where you came from, also recognizing and embracing some of our tribal partnerships right in our back door. And so trying to find ways to create a culture where just being more inclusive in the everyday work that we do. We, at a department and division, we send out regular engagement surveys to our staff to really understand where it is that we could, be more inclusive and have work on policies that might be more inclusive. We've created staff biography posters, and so those staff that do come from a diverse background, being able to highlight the careers within the department, and then as using those for recruitment efforts. And so that's been really an exciting tool when we've gone to virtual fairs or career fairs, is having these biography posters that can kind of highlight the work that we do. And then expanding on our job postings and recruitment websites. So part of the pandemic, it's actually been kind of nice. The career fairs have been virtual, so being able to reach a broader audience. We've expanded on some of our traditional career fairs through Manners, Phi Beta Sigma, and Kappa Alpha Psi, which are more of the historically Black fraternities in the nation. So excited to be able to, like I said, build on the pipeline, start expanding on our traditional relationships that we may have just gone to in the past. And then I think this was mentioned as well, mentorships and the importance of mentorship. And so trying to develop what a mentorship program could look like for our division, but at the department level as well, investing in a pilot fellowship programs and connecting with various universities, as well as bringing folks in that can get a feel for what it's like not only to work in Wisconsin, but to work in our natural resources fields. And then lastly, just looking inwardly within the division, having, like I said, hiring a contractor that is going to come and do a cultural assessment within our division to really help us frame out a roadmap so that we are training on the things that we need to train on, that we are having our staff have a common language to be able to share amongst each other, and that we're building up a roadmap and a long-term plan to continue to help support our supervisors and staff for the future. And so just to recap, it starts with leadership. You can't over communicate the importance. It starts with investment, and it continues on with collaboration and long-term relationships. And so with that, thank you very much, and I'll pass it on.
Thank you so much, Heather.